Any plans for this evening? Perhaps a game night?
Game over, man. It's game over.
Shut up. Play the game. Play it from your heart.
26 years ago, we started playing a little game. Now, we're all gonna sit down. We're gonna finish it.
And may the odds be ever in your favor.
And here we go.
Hello, and welcome to Dice Camera Action, a mashup podcast about board games and movies where cardboard meets the silver screen. Each episode, we review a board game. And if you're a cinephile, you could stick around for an in-depth discussion about a movie with a similar theme. We had your curiosity, and hopefully now we have your attention. I'm Matt Kuzo.
Yeah.
With me today is Andrew Stiles. What's going on, Andrew?
Hello, listeners. So glad to be back. This is my third appearance, but now I'm a host.
Yeah, that's one of the things right off the top I wanted to talk about. So we did on the last episode kind of make the announcement of the fact that we were expanding the team, and Isaac Hirschfeld, who we heard from in the last episode, has been added to the team as well as yourself.
Spectacular person, yeah,
for sure, yeah, great guy. And we only have great guys here on the pod, and yeah,
that's the hope.
I'm proud of the little team that we're putting together. So Andrew, officially welcome to the Dice Camera Action team. Andrew's going to be a regular host with us here now on the show. Jason has to step back a tiny bit, as you may have heard on the last episode. But if you didn't, yeah, basically Jason's taken on a new job. He has to step back a tiny bit. He'll still be involved. He'll still be on as a regular host, but maybe not quite as often as he previously was. And we've now added Andrew and Isaac to the team. So, really excited to expand the team and to diversify and, have more people and more opinions. And I think we're going to have some fun with this. So welcome officially, Andrew, to the Dice Camera Action team. I'm really excited to have you join us.
Yeah, thank you. And on top of that, I feel like a good movie group should be multiple people, right? Like really and truly, you should have a collaborative environment and everybody should see different things. Like if you want to watch a Transformers movie, I'm not your guy, but there should be somebody who is, like that's cool.
For sure. Cool. So, we wanted to mention that off the top. The other thing that I wanted to kind of put in the kind of announcements top of the show is that you currently have a Kickstarter that is live. What I mean by that is you've designed one of the games I think you designed, or were part of the team that designed. You know way more about this than I do, but it's a collection of trick-taking games that you can back on Kickstarter. So if you can just kind of run us through what the Kickstarter is all about.
Yeah, so it's Baron John Games' 2025 Kickstarter collection. It's 4 games. It's trick-taking and climbing and shedding. I have, with my co-designer, Stephen Ungaro, we have one game together called Three Tricky Pigs. It's a trick-taking game based on the Three Little Pigs. Stephen also has a game about hens. That's a climbing shedding game on there. There's also like a Scooby-Doo game and like just some really cool stuff on there. So I highly recommend it. We've already had 161 backers. We have fulfilled. So it's definitely getting made. And this is going to be a limited release. They're not going to be anything in retail stores. You're not going to get it later on. You either have to be a Kickstarter backer now and get a copy or buy it secondhand from somebody else later down the line. I don't know if there's going to be any availability whatsoever after this. So highly recommend if this sounds interesting to you, go check it out. But as far as my game goes, the trick on that one of Three Tricky Pigs is that you want to be the laziest pig unless a wolf shows up. And the 4 suits are the 3 different pigs and then the wolves. The trick to this one also is that the highest suit is going to be your bricklaying pig. Then the wolves are a little less high, and then the other 2 are the low suit, even though there's 2 of them. They're kind of even. So it's easy to be lazy if you're a stick pig. It's hard to be lazy if you're the brick pig. But then we've also added some cool cards in there that are huff and puff cards. And what they do is they add to the value. So it makes it easier for you to strengthen your house if you're the sticks or if you're the brick. Or it can make your if you make your wolf supercharged, it can make it a bigger and stronger wolf. You also do a little bit of bidding and stuff like that in there. If this sounds interesting to you, highly recommend checking it out. We did a tremendous amount of playtesting, and everybody seems to really enjoying playing it. It's very good for casual gamers, though, who just play like hearts and spades. There's nothing crazy complicated to it. Just a really clever little add-on.
Right on, yeah. I haven't played Three Tricky Pigs,
We have
but
to fix that.
I have played, yeah, for sure. Well, it will be fixed because I'm a backer.
Good.
But yeah, but I have played Hen House in one of its earlier kind of versions of it when Steven was originally working on it 2 or 3 years ago now, when I first met Steven at the very first Nerd Fest. So yeah, Steve and I go back probably about 3 years now. You and I know each other for a couple of years. I've played one of your games. I think I've play tested a few online as well, some of your other stuff. So I know for sure that there's quality behind this project.
Thank you.
Yeah, and I'm super excited to check it out. And like Steve is like the trick taking guy of our like our friend group and stuff. Every time I get together with that guy, he's got like a basket full of like dozens of these small card games and trick takers and climbers and cheddars. And the guy introduced me to like so many small card games and trick takers, and the guy knows what he's doing when it comes to that style of game. So I'm really excited to get my hands on both of those games, as well as the other ones that come in the bundle. That I know nothing about, but they seem pretty cool.
Steven and I met, and he reignited my love of trick-taking games. I grew up playing trick-taking games with my family, but he reignited it, and he started to introduce me to not only other people who are trick-taking people, but also games I'd never heard of. And after that, we got a collaboration together. We kind of were like, hey, we should put something together. Took some time. Eventually, we came up with this. So, yeah, we're really excited to put this out in the world.
Very cool. So I'm excited to get. Is there a timeline? I guess we should probably give people dates, because this episode's going to air, and as of the time of this recording, it's going to air in like almost 2 weeks from now.
Yeah. So the Kickstarter will be almost finished, but we're going to have late pledges through Gen Con. So if you are hearing this, late pledges should be still available. Once again, it's already backed. It's already going to happen. So it's a matter of how long they hold the late pledges open. I don't have an end date on it, but through Gen Con for sure.
Very cool. Awesome. So yeah, we're going to, on the episode, you mentioned Gen Con. You've recently been to another con. You went to Origins. Yep. So you're going to jump into all that and give us a whole bunch of your experience there at Origins. We are on this episode going to be doing shutouts, and then we're going to dive deep into Tiny Epic Western, one of my favorite underrated, underplayed games in the hobby. It's not a masterpiece by any means. We'll get into it, but I think it's very underrated and people should check it out. And then the movie that we paired with it was Django Unchained.
Yes.
So why don't we get into the theme that we chose here? Obviously, we went with the Western theme. We have covered the Western on the pod before when we did Western Legends, and we had paired that with Tombstone. So that was a super fun episode with
great pairing.
Hackner. So we're returning to the West here. And if you can hear tumbleweed flying by behind me here, that's the reason.
Little Sergio Leone soundtrack in the back there.
Yeah. Maybe I'll put on a little a little Sergio Leone. Exactly. Spaghetti Western themed music here. But are you a big fan of the genre, of the Western genre, Andrew?
I am. I realize its shortcomings. I realize it's a little bit overly masculine and not especially pleasant to the feminine side of things. It's a little chauvinistic as a whole. But I like the idea of a hero having to overcome dramatic odds and usually providing justice to a justiceless land, right? Like he's coming to fix the ilk that is a plight upon the land. I love it if there were more female westerns. I would love that even more personally, but we're not there yet.
Yeah, there have been some steps in the right direction on that front,
Right.
but yeah, largely it's still a very male dominated genre. The one that comes to mind is The Harder They Fall. Have you seen The Harder They Fall on Netflix?
I have not yet. It's on my list of things to check out.
Okay, highly recommend it. It is it's basically a black Western. Like when I mean, was it black? I mean African American. Like
Right.
It is directed, and most of the characters are black, and it's very highly stylized. It's very interesting. There's some strong female characters. It's just way more diversity in general, and the style of it, the music. It is a blast and very, very refreshing for this genre in specific to like see something different, because every Western you've seen, whether it's like going way back to the 50s and 60s and, right up to modern day Westerns, and including the one we're going to talk about today, they're very stylistically similar. They look very similar. The music is very similar. The themes are all the same. And we don't really get, and I mean, this one Django is almost an homage. I feel like it's set up that way to be an homage and to be,
yes, no question,
kind of a reflection of the genre. So not to give it a total pass on that front, but it is almost, I wouldn't use the word satire, but it is an homage, I guess is probably the best way to put it. But yeah,
before we get too far, I want to mention Netflix. Before we get too far, I do want to say the best one, as far as I'm concerned, as a female lead, is The Quick and the Dead. It's not that they don't exist; there's not enough of them existing, and I'm a huge fan of The Quick and the Dead. It's a great movie.
Yeah, and another one that probably puts a little bit of a twist on the genre. Not a big twist, but it is stylized, right? It is a little bit goofier and wackier, and has a little bit more self-aware, and has a little bit more fun. Yeah, a little bit more fun with the premise and the genre in general. And Sharon Stone being the female lead of that movie, and she's a badass and she can handle herself. So yeah, there's a little bit of an exception there for sure. So I was just gonna The Harder They Fall on Netflix. Highly recommend if you want a refreshing take and a good time. It's a great cast too. It's a lot of fun.
What is your all-time favorite Western, out of curiosity?
I never really thought about it. I'm not a huge Western guy. I like the Western fine, but it's like, I will say I've watched very few of the Clint Eastwood Westerns.
Sure.
And I probably have seen 2 or 3 of the Outlaw Josie Wales, for few
full of dollars.
More.
Yep.
Good, Bad, and the Ugly. To me, they all just blend together. I couldn't even tell you which is which or what the plot of which is, because they're just kind of all the same movie to me.
I'm sure you're not the only one who feels that way.
Though I do remember liking them. Like, oh, that was cool. Yeah. That was fun. But I also haven't revisited any of those movies in probably the last 10 or 15 years. So it's like I couldn't really have a legitimate opinion on them.
All right. One that I keep coming to is the Once Upon a Time in the West is my absolute favorite. And yeah, it's an epic. It's a opera, if you will, in some ways. But it is so incredibly beautiful in its dirt and grime. And yet it is almost like simultaneous poetic and for every man. It's just a beautiful combination of multitudes that is really, really fun to watch. A little slow pacing, so don't expect modern filmmaking's pacing. But if you like a slow pace, it's great. And also, 3:10 to Yuma is a great one.
You're
been remade a couple times. That's a classic one. That was on the list of maybe for this one as a pair.
Yes, yeah, I was going to mention, if I had to pick my few favorite westerns, Django Unchained would be right at the top. 310 to Yuma would be one of them. Unforgiven,
Yes.
I think is a masterpiece as well from the aforementioned Clint Eastwood
Right.
as director and lead of that movie. And I feel like there was one more I wanted to mention. Tombstone is a ton of fun.
Oh yeah, of course.
It would probably be at the bottom of my list of favorite Westerns, but it would be in the conversation, primarily just for Val Kilmer's performance and everything he brings to that. And yeah, the great mustaches. So many good mustaches in that movie. Cool. So yeah, we landed on Django. We hadn't covered Tarantino on the pod before, so as soon as that was mentioned, I said, like, that's got to be it. It'll give us a chance to have some fun with one of my favorite filmmakers. And it's just an interesting movie to talk about too. I think there's lots to mine there. And then in terms of the game, I think the game was the staple. Like, we had decided that we were both familiar with this game. It's a game that I had put kind of on our spreadsheet of like games we might cover or look at. And you had picked it out as a game that you also are familiar with and would be interested in talking about. So we started with the game, and then we kind of looked at what our options would be with in terms of the thematic pairing.
Once again, so also with the Western theme as far as games go, I think that they are also few and far between really good ones out there. I feel like I think a lot of the ones that are really Western driven tend to be on the middling side, to be harsh about it, right? Like, I feel like they're medium good, they're solid, there's really few of them that are exceptional. And I think that's part of the issue with this genre for Western games. I feel like there's not one that's head and shoulder above the rest. Yeah,
I haven't played a ton of them, but I also I say this anecdotally again because I haven't played most of these, but it doesn't feel like the theme. There's a lot of theme that could come through. I played Western Legends, which is the sandbox, do whatever you want, dripping with theme, quote unquote,
right,
Western game. And
though
I did feel the theme come through on that game, but I think that they went so far on the let's be thematic and let's just be open sandbox that I didn't feel like there was a ton of game there, actual. I think it's a game that if you want to role play it and put on some costumes and really get into the theme of it, where you're almost playing like a Western Dungeons and Dragons,
right?
That could work for you. It's not my style of gaming. I like a puzzle. I like, messing with resources and being efficient and building an engine and making smart decisions. I want a game to make me feel smart. That's, if I had to pick one thing, that's probably, the thing that attracts me to a game is does it have opportunities for me to be clever and feel smart when I play it? If it checks that box, then we're a huge percentage of the way to me liking a game, and Western Legends doesn't really do that.
I said, if that's what you feel, then I think Coloma is probably the closest for you to try. I would also say that Carson City is probably a second one for you to try. If you haven't tried those two, those are two that I think are quality that you should check out.
Cool. And I just want to say, because it sounds like I just buried Western Legends. I think for what it does, it's really good. It's just not my style of game. And I know that when I played it with, a handful of buddies that night, most of the table was having a blast, role playing it and having fun with it. And so it's definitely got its place in the hobby. It's just not specifically for me.
True.
So let's get into shoutouts, and then we'll jump into our primary goal here, which is to dissect this game that we both sort of love in a weird way.
That sounds great.
Talk about it, yeah. So shoutouts. I guess maybe I'll just go first and I'll do both mine, because then I'll let you do a little segment on Origins, because I know that's going to be your shoutouts. So I in the last couple of days, I'm a big Danny Boyle fan. And I love most of his movies. There's a few in there that don't quite hit for me, but I'm a big Danny Boyle fan, and 28 Days Later is no exception. It was, when that came out and I watched it, I think that was one of the movies that kind of cemented my love for the zombie movie. I'm a big Romero fan. I love most zombie movies, and I always have a blast with them, even the ones that are not great. There's always like, because the zombie movie is not necessarily meant to be high art. In most cases, zombie movies are just like, how cool can you make the zombies? How cool can you make the kills? How much can you ratchet up the tension? And like, a lot of those things are what makes a fun zombie movie. Not to say that
zombies are
high art.
Yeah, zombies are a horror film, and it's the same things that make a great horror film make a great zombie film.
Right, but if you can mash up that and everything that comes with what we just said with high art, or with a very good storyteller and a good director and a good writer, and come out with a movie that not only has all those great horror zombie tropes, but also has heart and has great characters and has good cinematography and has good story and all that stuff, then you're really, cooking with gas. And that's exactly what Danny Boyle did with 28 Days Later. So 28 Days Later is a 5-star movie for me. I think it, despite the fact that it was shot on a potato, like it was shot on a consumer camera at the time. I think it was called the Canon XL1. I remember that being the hot, like when I went to college for television and film, I remember that camera being like a big deal. So anyways, all that to say, Danny Boyle, instead of shooting on like professional grade, like really expensive cameras, kind of went guerrilla style and shot on this XL1 for 28 Days Later. And it shows if you watch it today. It is very grainy, but I think it's part of the charm of that movie. It just makes it feel almost more realistic and more hits home a little bit more for its look. Not to say that it wasn't shot extremely well. The cinematography was great. It's a fantastic movie. It just looks grainier than most people are used to. If you can get past that, amazing movie. So all that to say, Danny Boyle and Alex Garland, the writer for 28 Days Later, have teamed up again, I think for the first time since that movie. Okay. If I'm not mistaken. They worked together a few times before. The Beach is another one, and I think Sunshine is another one where the two of them got together.
Sunshine's great.
I'm a huge fan of Sunshine. Yeah, this was the first time for 28 years later now. I don't know how many years later it's been, but 18 or 20 years later.
I think so, but also I think this is number 3, isn't it? It was 28 days, 28 months, and then now it's 28 years, right?
It was 28 weeks, yeah.
Weeks, that's what it was,
so 28 days, 28 weeks, which Danny Boyle and Alex Garland had nothing to do with, and it shows. It's still a fine zombie movie. As I said, it has all of the zombie tropes that you're looking for. It has an incredible opening, one of the all-time best openings of any movie, period. So it still has some high highs and it has some low lows, is what I'll say.
Okay.
And then what comes out in the wash is like a just fine zombie movie. I think I gave it 3 stars. So it's fine. And so the other night, in anticipation of going to see 28 years later, in one night I watched 28 Days and 28 Weeks, and then the following night went to see 28 Years Later.
And how does it hold up?
A good friend of mine. It's great. It's really, really great. It's weird. It's different, and it's going to rub some people the wrong way. It's not as, although it has moments of like incredible, zombie tension, violence, gore. It has those moments. It is way more of a human story with an emotional heart, and with an emotional baggage and family and great characters, and has all the stuff that you expect from Garland and Boyle. But it has more of that stuff than it has the zombie stuff. It is also the first of, I think, what is a planned trilogy. So I think the 28 Years Later is a trilogy, and this is the first of the 3 movies. So it's doing a lot of setting up and table setting and stuff like that too. So and the ending is going to be very divisive. It takes a little bit of a weird turn, but I still loved the movie, and I'm really excited to see what they come up with next. Okay, so that was my movie. The game I want to talk about super quick, and I only got one play in, so I'm gonna make this really short. But I got my hands on Shackleton Base, which is kind of a new hotness that's just come out.
Very curious myself, yeah.
Yeah, so Shackleton Base, A Journey to the Moon, which is a weird title because there's no journey. You're literally already settled on the moon and building. But anyways, it's a really interesting worker placement game. The 2 main things I want to talk about that I thought were really cool was that at the beginning of each of the 3 rounds, you shuffle up what they're called shuttle tiles, and then you draft them. And then when you draft these tiles, each tile will have resources on it and a handful of workers. And there's 3 different colored workers in the game. Again, I've only played this once, so I don't know what they do exactly, but there's like a red one, a blue one, and a yellow one or something. Okay. And then, so it'll have a mix of those 3 different, it'll have 6 of those workers in a mix of the different colors, as well as a bunch of the resources in the game. And then the ones that are better have a higher number, and if you draft the ones that are better, you're going to go last. And if you draft the ones that are maybe a little bit weaker, you'll go first. So that's how the turn order is decided for the round. And that's how your resources and what types of worker you have for the round are decided. So I thought that was pretty neat. Once the round starts, there are 3 different kind of areas of the board where you can play your workers that do different things. But the main one is there's this like the crater, like Shackleton Crater is a real crater on the south pole of the moon, and it is thought to be possibly rich in resources or whatever. So that's where like they suspect that if we ever do set up a colony or a base on the moon, it might be near the Shackleton Crater for that reason. So yeah, the board is this like big crater with like a bunch of hex tiles in it, and then each hex tile you have the ability to play buildings into, and there's a space for a 1 building, a 2 building, a 3 building, and then you have 1 big building that is 6 that you could take up that whole hex. So you're trying to build construct these buildings onto these hexes. And then the thing that's really neat about this like hex board, and like I recommend you Google the image maybe or check it out on BGG, but all along the edges of the crater, there are spots where you can place a worker. And then that worker will look at the line of hexes that it is facing. So, and then depending on the color of the worker you place there, you're either going to collect credits like money, which is one of the resources, based on how much control you have in that line. Or you'll collect resources, which is like titanium and like, I don't even know what they are, but there's 3 different types of resources where again, based on what you have control of in that line and the color of the worker that you put, you'll gain a bunch of resources. So there's like 3 different colored workers that you could put all along the edges of this board. And then based on how many buildings you have constructed and stuff, you'll get different things. So there's just lots of options. The rules I want to say the rules are like not super complicated, but the amount of like different things that you can do with your different colored workers and the 3 different spaces you can send them to is really, really interesting. And the last thing I want to mention is that at the end of the round, you're going to look at the Shackleton Crater, and all around the edges of it will be like, I don't know, potentially a dozen workers that were previously placed there by everybody. And then you're going to look at each of these lines, and whoever has the most control, so the most buildings, right, in each of these lines, if you picture it almost like a grid, it's just circular though, right? So you're going to look at each of these workers and where they're facing, and whoever has the most control gets to take that worker and place it on their player board. And then at the end of each round, your player board will activate based on what workers are where, because your player board has a whole bunch of different spots that you can slot your workers in, and the different colored ones do different things depending on where they're sitting in your player board. So it's a really like a cascading kind of like thing where you like choose your workers, you place out your workers, and then you take them back and put them on your player board. And then each of these steps has implications based on where you're putting them, when you're putting them, and what color each of those workers are. So really interesting puzzle that I could not wrap my brain around until near the very end of the game. I started to see the matrix and see, how to play the game more efficiently. So I'm just really excited to get it back to the table and get a better idea of how to play it and improve. And it's a really neat system. I don't want to say if it's a great game or not, but it's a really, really neat system. And I'll report back once I get a few more plays in, maybe.
Yeah, this one looks a little bit intimidating to look at on the table. There's just a lot of little fiddly bits and stuff like that. But I mean, the pedigree of these designers is pretty amazing. I mean, they've done Darwin's Journey and Newton and Kalimala, and like just these are really good games, and it looks like a very, very heavy game. So either that's really good or not. I mean, its weight is a 3.74. That's not a joke. And what it sounds like, it is worthy of that puzzle. You just have to be willing to sink into it, is what it sounds like.
Yeah, I want to say it's more intuitive than, you probably can say this for most good heavy Euros, right? Is that once, like a lot of the times you put these on the table and you're very intimidated and you're like, ooh, like this is going to be rough. Yeah. And then by the end of the game, most of the time, at least for the well-designed ones, by the end of it, they're usually like the iconography and the flow of the game usually is intuitive enough for you to, and this is no exception.
Right. Okay.
Yeah. After I felt like the rules explanation took, a good 20 minutes or so. Okay. But once we got started, what you could do was fairly intuitive and fairly easy to understand. But what you want to do to be good and efficient is still a complete mystery. Okay. So I think it hits all those marks in a positive way. But again, one play, so take all that with a grain of salt.
Fair enough.
Andrew, I want to hear about Origins. Tell me about your experience. You went last weekend, I believe. Tell me about what you did at Origins, what you played, who you met.
So Origins for me is a little bit of a love letter to this industry, right? Not only was it its 50th anniversary, but it's the kind of convention that I think seamlessly blends the commerce and just the camaraderie, really and truly. The play area that's free to play is gargantuan. It's huge. There's lots and lots of tables. And even on the busiest times, it's hard to believe you couldn't find a spot for 4 people to sit down and play a game, let alone 2 people or 3 people sit down and play a game. And they always have this gigantic area of miniatures and other things you can normally not play at home with your friend group unless somebody heavily invests in something. So like I played a game called the Kessel Run, which had these gigantic spaceships, and it was zooming around a little map and doing some auctioning and bidding and stuff like that. I also played a game called Space Pirates, which were floating pirate ships, and you were moving your pieces around and shooting each other and trying to do damage. And I mean, like, none of these games were very complicated, but they looked fun. And so I thought, you know what, I never try those. Let me try those. So I did that this time. And on top of that, the commerce area, the hall, has all these great vendors with all these different great games and stuff. And I always get to see all my friends and talk to people that I don't normally talk to except at these conventions. And I think that's what I really love about it. But I also love to meet these new publishers, people who put out their first game or their second game or something like that, finally have a booth there. And now I can actually see, what they're doing and how they're doing it. And I get to talk to them and meet them and just have all those kind of fun things. And the camaraderie and the community that is this hobby board game thing is got to be my favorite thing. So I go there for that, and then all the rest of the fun stuff is an added bonus. And so this year was no exception.
Very cool. Yeah, that's like for sure. Once you get involved in a community, in an online community, like I've gone to, I want to say 5 or 6 of these bigger conventions over the last, like peppered out over the last, 5 or 6 years probably. And yeah, it's like I remember very specifically the first few that I went to, I felt very uncomfortable and I didn't really know many people. And I think one of those I was on my own. I just went on my own. So it felt like a little bit of a solitary experience, and I still loved it. And I got to experience a bunch of stuff, and I played some games with a bunch of strangers. But I met some people and befriended some people, and put some faces to names of like some of the online communities that I'm part of and stuff like that. And then as you get to your second and your third and your fourth one you go to, now it's like I could walk into any of those conventions and just run into probably a dozen people that I recognize and that I know and that I'm happy to like approach and sit down with and play games and chat and catch up and whatever. So it's neat that that like that a hobby like this can like bring people together. And like I can guarantee that, like, again, if I go to one of these places and I meet with 5 or 6 people, they're going to be from all over the continent, and in some cases from other continents, which is really neat. Yeah.
Yeah, so one of the things I was doing here this year, though, that was a special for me, was that this is the first year I had a game being sold in a booth. So I'm sure we've mentioned before, Wine Cellar is my game. It's from 25th Century Games with Vincent Dutray as the artist. And I was actually at the booth demoing and signing copies, and I felt like the tiny celebrity that it feels like basically being a high school jock, maybe level of special, like celebrity, right? Like people know me, but not in the greater world. And that was just kind of really cool. And hopefully this is the first of many that I get to do that with. I am planning on doing that also at Gen Con this year. So if you're going to be at Gen Con, you can check out the 25th Century booth, and I'll be there for that. And speaking of which, 25th Century booth is full of cool people, but one of my favorite people is Chris Goodlett, who did a really cool thing where he made a Full House intro video for Origins this year. So, that kind of thing where in Full House you're watching and then the person turns to the camera and smiles or whatever not. He did like 30 people doing this. He had to do it in 2 parts, but he did a spectacular job, and you can find that on Facebook and the internet and stuff like that. If you look me up, I have already reposted it because it's pretty awesome. That was pretty cool. I also got a chance to hang out with the guys from the Trick Talkers group. So the Trick Talkers is a podcast about trick taking, which of course, if you're going to go down the rabbit hole, these guys will help you get there faster. But we always, now for the 3rd straight year now, we take a little time on one of the nights and we set aside just trick taking games. And we sit down as a group. And I think this year we had about 16 people come and play. And so we were playing like 3 or 4 different trick taking games at one time. And it's just such a great group, and they always introduce me to some really cool stuff. And this year, the big hit was, for those who love trick taking, Nikosu Dice is one of the special ones. It's really, really different. And I'm not going to get into that one.
My favorite trick taking game.
You like that one. Good. I'm not going to get too deep into that one because I want to talk about the other one. So the same designer made this other game called Final Binary, which takes Nikosu Dice and then goes to an upper level. And by that I mean, just for an example, in this game you have cards in your hand that are numbered and suited like normal, but then half your hand is just a suit. So what do you do with just a suit? Well, when you play that suit...
So what do you mean by that is there's no numbers on it? Is that right?
No numbers. Numbers at all,
okay.
Yeah. So when you play that card, though, then you have to also flip over one of your bid cards in front of you. So you have a whole list of bid cards that say, like, 1, 2, 3, 4, whatever, how many tricks I think I'm going to make. So I have to delete one of the numbers I think is going to match the number of tricks I've taken, and that tells me which cards in my binary I have to flip over. And so there's 3 cards in your binary, a 4, a 2, and a 1. So if it says flip over the left 2, then my 4 and my 2 have to flip over, and now that card is only worth 1. And so when I play that card, that's the situation. So not only are you playing a card for the suit, now you have to play a different thing to find out what the number is, and the complexity of that combo of things. It sounds mind-bending, and at first it is, but then after you play a whole hand, you're like, no, I kind of get it. I understand now. Just kind of like with Shackleton Base, right? Like it seems more complicated than it actually is, but it's so fun to have nothing be set. Like one of my hardest frustrations with trick-taking games is you get your hand, you look at it, you go, oh, all right, I'm not going to have fun this round because this is going to be a terrible hand. Or I have a great hand, oh, this is going to be amazing, right? Like this shortchanges that in a different way to force the player to then move on the fly, but they can turn their hand into a great hand depending on how they play it. So that's the really cool thing about this one. So one of the big surprises for me this year was this final binary game. It's not currently available in the United States, but I would not be surprised if somebody somewhere picks it up and executes it to U.S. audiences or whatever as far as that goes.
Yeah, that sounds amazing. I didn't fully understand everything you just said, but
you couldn't.
Yeah, but it sounds really interesting. And if I think of that and I think of Nikosu Dice, like it sounds like it has a very similar vibe in terms of complexity added to a trick-taking game. Like I call Nikosu Dice a heavy trick-taking game because like
this one's heavier.
You're just like your brain's melting and it feels like every decision is so critical and it's so difficult to decide what you want to do in the best way. Like, I love Nikosu Dice and same designer. Count me in. I'm going to try to track down a copy of that as soon as I humanly possible for sure.
There was another game that stood out to me also is Skyrise, which was my first time playing that one. I believe it's from Roxley who did that one. This one's interesting because it took the nocturne bidding system, but then ratcheted it up, right? And I'm not sure if that's by design or not, but the nocturne bidding system is basically this. When somebody places a bid, they place it somewhere on the board claiming that space. If you don't want them to get it, you have to bid a higher bid in an adjacent space. And so it creates this snake bid where it like moves on the board to different spaces. And if you end up being the person who wins the bid, you get the space that you're on with the highest bid. So you not only have to contemplate whether you want to up the bid to somebody else, but is the space that I have to put the bid on worth bidding into? And where does that lead into? Do I want to have the next person in bidding order have access to the space that is adjacent to where I put my bid down? It's a really cool, different way of doing bidding and area control at the same time. And I think Skyrise did a really, really cool job with it for a couple reasons. One, because you're using buildings of different sizes. So if you use a low bid, it's a small building. A mid bid is a mid building, and a big bid is a tall building. Well, the tall buildings and little buildings depend on how you control an area. A tall building takes gigantic control. A little building is like a tiebreaker. So it doesn't actually help you accomplish certain things, but it can if placed in the right spot, right? Mm-hmm. And then once somebody has used their initial run of buildings, then everybody gets their secondary set of buildings added in. So there's this really kind of compelling way of looking at the board, seeing it and evaluating it with every single placement. And despite this being a crunchy, heavy game as far as the decision-making process, the turns move pretty quick because it's either you're bidding or you're not. Do I want to put next to those spaces or not? So it sounds like I'm making a deeper decision, but I can actually kind of semi-anticipate how the bids are going to go around the table. We played this and had a great time, so I recommend checking that out. If anything I said just sounds good, Skyrise is actually a really good game.
Cool, yeah. I love the idea of combining like bidding, but the thing that you're bidding with is part of an area control. Like there's a geographic component to where you're putting it and why.
Right.
That sounds fascinating. And this game has been on my radar for a long time, and for whatever reason, it just hasn't landed on my shelves or hit my table. So I definitely, and I love Roxley games. I just love the look and feel of their games. I think they're a great publisher. So yeah, that one's been on my radar for a long time. I've got to get my hands on it one way or another here at some point.
All right. And I'll do one other shout out, Crokinole. It's probably my absolute favorite dexterity game, and I don't play it as often as I'd like to. Obviously, it comes from the land up north, your home country there. It is essentially curling, but indoors. You are flicking a puck, trying to land in the middle, but the real trick of the game is when someone misses the middle drop-in spot, right? So if there's a puck left on the board, you have to hit that puck first. before anything else matters. And if you miss, it goes right off the board and doesn't count. So you're trying to score points by being the closest to the center, and obviously the optimal is to drop it inside the hole. But it really is this combination of like billiards and darts kind of together with curling. I think that's the best way to describe it. And it's a phenomenal game. And every year at Origins for the last 3 or 4 years, the Crokin area has been getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And I think this year they had something like 30 tables set up. And they had tournaments going, and they're now part of the National Crokinole Association official tourney listing. So this year, with my first year, I was putzing around talking to the guys and having a good time. They're like, well, the doubles is about to start any minute now. Do you want to jump in? I was like, well, I don't really have anything to go on, but I don't really want to participate. And they're like, yeah, just come on and do it. You're good enough. You could do something. We'll see how you do. And I'm like, all right, fine, but I have a partner. And they're like, we know a guy. And so this guy, Robert, comes rolling in, and he's like, I'll be your partner. And I'm like, okay, fine. We sit down. We did so much better than someone who is 5 minutes into meeting their partner in a doubles tournament should do. We ended up qualifying for the finals on Sunday. Awesome. So we were like, well, now I got to cancel my plans for Sunday and make sure we come back to this thing. So yeah, it was great. And then we played in that, and I thought, we're going to get smoked because we have nationally ranked people playing this game and stuff like that. And we surely got trounced our first game, and we deserved to, right? We're playing against people who are really, really good.
Right.
But then we eked out a win in the second game, and then eked out another win in the third game, and then we eked out a win in the fourth game, and then we got smoked again by somebody else who deserves to be on the thing. But we had such a great time. I cannot recommend it enough. Don't feel like a crokinole thing or a tournament of any kind is about being good. It's about having fun, and it's about meeting people. And I met some really awesome, amazing people through this, including people who smoked us. We had such a good time. I think we won the second game because our opponents were laughing more than they were playing. And so obviously that's a good time. And the guy said afterwards, he's like, I really wish we could play with you guys more often because we just had such a great time losing. And I was like, that's a great game, right? The best game is the game you have fun losing.
Yeah, for sure. That's awesome. I'm like embarrassed to say that I've never played crokinole.
I'm going to fix
Canadian
that.
Dude,
all right.
and, yeah, I got to get.
Next time we hang out, we're playing.
Sounds good. Speaking of tournaments, I wasn't going to talk about this, but it just occurred to me that maybe it'd be a fun thing to mention. I decided that I was going to hold a board game championship for my gaming group.
Ooh!
Here at my house, so we started planning it like a week ago, and is like it kind of just caught fire, and like a whole bunch of people already RSVP'd, and so it sounds like it's going to happen. But basically, the game plan is that we're going to have everybody now. So this isn't happening till September 6th, and we're sitting here on July 2nd. My birthday, by the way. Happy birthday to me.
Happy birthday to you.
You got a birthday. You just had a birthday, didn't you?
Yep. I just had a birthday a couple days ago.
There you go. What are you, 28, 29?
Yeah, let's go with 28, 29. Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I keep saying I'm in my late 30s, early 40s. that's what I tell people. Anyways. So yeah, July 2nd now. And, we just looked at the availability for like the most people in our game group, and we landed on September 6th. So what we're doing now is we're getting everybody to submit, a bunch of games that they want to include in the tournament.
Right.
And we're going to have a couple of heavy games, longer games. We're going to have a couple of mid-length games, and we're going to have a whole bunch of short games. And then we're going to have probably 2 or 3 tables, and we'll have 3 players at each table. We'll have 2 or 3 tables that are like heavier, like mid to heavy Euro games. And we're going to allot 3 hours per like session. Okay. And then, so there's going to be a couple of like 1 or 2, let's say, heavier games. Then there's going to be one table where the group sits down and they'll play 2 medium weight games or shorter games that are an hour and a half. And then we'll have 1 or 2 tables that's a whole bunch of short games. So you'll sit down at a table with 3 people and you'll play Scout and Castle Combo and Roll and Write and maybe Trick Taker.
Okay.
So you'll play like 4 games over the course of 3 hours. And then there'll be some sort of, we haven't worked it all out, but there'll be some sort of point system where if you win, you get X amount of points, second place, whatever, right? And
Right.
then as we get toward the end of the night, let's say the 4 people with the most points will sit down, and again, I haven't worked out the format, but maybe the person who has the most points gets to choose the game.
Okay.
So either way, it's going to be an all-day event. We're going to start at like 8 or 9 in the morning, and we're going to go till probably 1 or 2 in the morning, and it's going to be an all-day event of board gaming and food and laughs and have a good time. So I thought it'd be fun to mention that really quickly, and obviously once we've done it in mid-September, maybe I'll do an episode where we talk about it some more. So yeah, I just thought that was a fun thing to do, and we put it far enough in the future here in a couple of months so that we can really plan it out and make it the best that it can be. So should be fun. Maybe we'll do.
All right. So for those listeners who hear this and said, "I got to participate," how can they be a part of this? Do they got to reach out to you personally?
Yeah, and you've got to obviously live in Sudbury, Ontario, Northern Ontario,
or they can travel to you and stay at a hotel. I'm not saying don't eliminate people from having a chance.
If you want to come up to Sudbury, yeah, maybe I don't know if it's going to be worth it, but yeah, you're welcome to send me a message. No, it's mostly going to be our gaming group, and we're extending it. Obviously, to get the numbers, we're extending it out to a little bit more friends and family or spouses or friends or whoever else wants to come in. But I'm thinking we're probably going to be like, a dozen to 15 people total for the day. So yeah, that should be fun, and I'll report back as we know more and as we get it done. It should be fun. Cool. So Tiny Epic Western is the game we're going to be covering here. So cue the Western music. It was published in 2016 by Gamelin Games, designed by Scott Alms, who also designed most of the other Tiny Epic games. So this is Tiny Epic Galaxies, Dungeons, Zombies, Pirates, Dinosaurs. He also designed Heroes of Land, Air, and Sea, which is a 4X fantasy game. And Beer and Bread, one of my favorite 2-player games.
That is probably my favorite of his games, by the way. If you've not played it, Beer and Bread is excellent. Yeah.
Very cool. Yeah, amazing little 2-player game. Art by Adam P. McIver. Plays 1 to 4 players. Plays in 30 to 45 minutes, which is a fully and complete lie. The BGG weight is 2.87, which is probably about right. And then it is currently at 6.6 on BGG, which I think is a little low. But we'll talk about that some more in a little bit here. So Tiny Epic Western combines poker, worker placement, and resource management in a fast-paced game of frontier strategy. Each round you send your posse to key locations, play poker hands, and win buildings, and gather resources to grow your influence. It's a clever, compact game that delivers big decisions and a touch of Wild West tension in a box the size of a cowboy's lunchbox. So that is kind of the general theme and idea of how the game plays. Do you want to take a crack at the explanation of the game? We'll keep it higher level. We don't need to get into all the nitty-gritty details, but you want to give us an idea of how the game plays?
So essentially, you have 6 locations, no matter the player count, right? You're going to put one of your workers in one of the locations. And the real risk of putting a worker in a location is twofold. One, you have to pick whether you're going to go on the safer side or the riskier side for some of the locations. Also, you're trying to keep your resources on 3 different tracks going. So some places you'll go and you'll be able to bump up stuff on a track. On top of that, there are buildings that are going to be for sale, and you can only get those buildings if you go on the space that's attached to those buildings. So what the buildings do then creates your little personal engine, but also your end game points, because the icons that are on the buildings that you build, there's an area control aspect of that. I feel like I'm going to be more convoluted in describing it the way I'm describing it, but that's the only way I can. But then the other thing is, if somebody goes in a location that you want, you can put your worker on there, and then you have a shootout. And the shootout revolves around these 3-handed or 3-card poker hands. So whoever has the better poker hand gets an advantage. And then you can also roll these little shootout dice, and you can use your poker hand to increase the value of the die as well as the resources. So if you're the defender, you use law, and if you're the aggressor, you use the
Force.
I guess bullets.
Force.
Force, that's what it is.
Yeah.
And so in a convoluted way, almost everything is interconnected in a cool way, and yet you can still kind of do almost whatever you want, except that there are deeper ramifications than just attacking somebody else, right? Matt, did I do okay giving the grandiose side of things?
Yeah. I would add a little bit here. Basically, the like locations that you're talking about are these little play mats that are sort of triangular shaped, and then you put them in a circular pattern on the board. So basically, once the game is set up on the table, it sort of looks like a wagon wheel. So it's got a really neat table presence. And then at the bottom of each of these locations, as you said, there is a building attached. Those are these building cards. And the building cards, if you buy them, have a point value, and they also influence like end game points as well, which we won't get too deep into, but basically you can influence which type of building is going to score more at the end of the game. And whoever has more of that type of building will score more points. So you're buying these buildings based on which ones you can afford, right? Because there's resource management and you're going to purchase these buildings. You're buying them for points because they're straight up just end game points on each of these buildings. And then, as I said, there's like an influence of 3 different symbols that you're going to try to have the most of at the end of the game to try to score points that way. And then round by round, what happens is there's a small deck of cards, and you're going to then deal out, like it's like basically poker here. You're going to deal out cards in between each of the 6 locations that you mentioned. And there's like town hall, there's the bank, there's the
saloon, the courthouse.
Yeah. And so each of these spots, you're going to put a card in between them. And then you're going to deal each player 2 cards. They're going to look at their hand and choose one of the 2 cards to keep. Then at the end of the round, anywhere you have a posse or a worker, right? They call them posse in this game. Anywhere you have a posse, you're going to participate in that poker game at that location. So if it's town hall, for example, you're going to look at the 2 cards on each side of the town hall and your card in your hand, and you're going to make the best 3-card poker hand that you can make.
Right.
So it's very simplified poker because it's only 3-card hands. So you're mostly looking at pairs, 3 of a kind, flush, and runs of 3. So very, very simplified poker. But essentially, at the end of each round, there's a poker game that's being played, and whoever has the strongest hand at each of these locations will get another little bonus. So when you're placing your posse token, you're doing it not only to gain the immediate resources that you might get, or because you want to buy the building that's attached to that location, but also you're looking at possibly participating in that poker hand to hopefully win it and gain even more resources or advantages. So it's just like there's a lot to consider when you're placing each of your 2 workers per round. You only have 2 workers. And spots are pretty tight. But yeah, that's like very high level of how the game plays. But I think the tension comes in making those decisions of where I want to place my worker, because there's, as I said, there's 2 or 3 different things that you're considering. There's resource management. Resources I find are really tight in this game too. There's plenty of rounds where, well, not plenty, but there's definitely a handful of rounds every game. I think there's 6 rounds every game, and at least once, sometimes twice per game, you get to the end of a round, you straight up can't afford a building. So you just don't get to score that for that round, more or less. Then there's a compensation where you get to play a 3rd worker in the next round. So it gives you a little bit of an advantage for the next round. And yeah, as you said, there's like these duels. So if you go to a spot, typically in a standard worker placement game, I can't go there. But in this game, I can go there, but there's going to be a duel. And so there's this little extra moment of tension where we'll roll dice, play cards, and try to win the duel. It's very short, easy, quick, and snappy. And then the person who wins gets to stand up their posse, and whoever loses has to lay them down, and they don't get to participate in the poker game at the end of the round at that location. So yeah, it's really neat. And then the one other thing that I want to mention, because this is the part of the game that I think is really, really fun and like chef's kiss kind of design, is I think it's the courthouse.
Okay.
I guess it doesn't really matter what it's called. I think it is the courthouse, but there's 2 locations at the courthouse where you can put your posse token, and depending on which one you put it on, you can actually cheat at poker and it lets you change your card. So there's suits and there's a hierarchy of suits. So some suits are stronger than others. And in a game where there's so few cards, tiebreakers are really important, and suits are really important. And so you can up your suit by 1 or go down by 1. So if you have the weakest suit, it will wrap around to the strongest suit. So I could place my posse token to change my like teepee suit to a bull horn suit.
Right.
And that's the strongest suit, or the horseshoe suit, or whatever it is.
The hat is the highest suit.
The highest. Yeah, you're right. So yeah, you can change your card, and there's another spot on that same mat, on that same location, where you can change the number of your cards. So you can change your 4 to a 5, or you can change your 5 to a 1. So you can mess with your hand and cheat, and that's a really fun thing, because that only occurs if your posse token is still standing there at the end of the round. Because if I go there to change my card because I really want to win at this other table where I need my 4 to be a 5, and then somebody else goes there and duels with me and forces me to like lay down, I don't get that benefit.
Right.
So yeah, there's just a really good amount of like tension and considering where you want to place your meeple, what resources you're immediately going to get, whether or not you're participating in the poker game for more resources, what cards you have at that location that are going to make a good poker hand, and whether or not you want to buy potentially that building that's attached to that location at the end of the round. So there's just lots of really neat mechanisms there. It's an interesting, weird mix that I find sometimes hard to explain when we're teaching the game. So it is a weird kind of like mishmash of stuff that I find like I had a difficult time learning it when I first learned this game. But once I did, and I played the game with the same group of people multiple times, the game really shines in that situation where you're playing it multiple times, especially if you're playing with the same group of people. And I think that it really takes that to shine, and that's probably why the score is a little bit lower on BGG, because people probably played it once or twice and went like, it's a little bit weird, and I don't really fully get everything, or and they don't really get to the point where the game shines. I don't know if you agree with that.
Yeah, I think the game, it's hard for me not to agree with that, right? Like, I feel like what you're saying is totally right. But I think also for me, the issues for this game is that if you don't play it with 3 or 4, it really drops off. Like, I know there's a 1-player version, and it's fine. It's okay. I've played it that way. And the 2-player game, it's fine, it's okay, but really, the tension in the game is the claustrophobicness of the locations being full. So if you don't have overlapping people, if you don't have at least a shootout going every round, the game kind of just moves along and gets done.
Yeah, agree 100%. I think this game really shines at the three players totally fine. It's good even, but I think the 4-player game is where it's at. And it's exactly what you said. The claustrophobia, the tension, and the risk of like you're constantly, and this is one example of the type of tension you might feel, right? I could go to place A, there's nobody else there, it's wide open, I can go there and I can get the one resource that I need to be able to purchase the building that I need. And it's easy, it's simple, and I'm going to do it. But I could go to this other place, but there's somebody already there. But if I win there, I get like 3 or 4 resources. Plus, I have a really good hand at that table, so I would probably win even more at the end of the round. And it's got the building that I really want to buy.
Right.
But all of that hinges on me winning that duel. And if I don't win the duel, I don't get the resources that I need to buy that building. So do I take that risk? So those are the type of moments that really make this game shine. And those are the type of moments that you probably don't fully grok and are able to decipher until you've played it at least one full time. And to kind of fully understand, because again, like there's so many different implications of why I would put my worker on a certain spot. And as I mentioned, you have 2 workers per round. So you mentioned claustrophobia. That's part of it. You're only doing 2 things. So you better make them count. And if you're taking that risk and you lose almost everything because you lost that duel, it can sting, right? Which is probably another reason where people, maybe score this game a little lower because they don't like the idea of like not just being able to do whatever they want. And I think you and I have specifically talked about this before, maybe in the Galactic Cruise episode. But like, I feel like worker placement is getting watered down quite a bit in modern board gaming, where it's like, a lot of board games now are just saying like, oh, no, you could still go there. Like, I know somebody else is there, but don't worry about it. You can still go there. You just have to pay a little resource, or you get to bump them and they get something cool or whatever. And I'm saying that it sounds like I'm like tearing that down as an awful thing. It's not. It's just like, I also like the other side of worker placement. And I really appreciate a situation where like, I can't go there because there's a worker there already. Or if I do, it poses a big risk if I lose or if it doesn't work out, whatever. So I just feel like this is a game that isn't watered down in any way, shape, or form. You just got to like weigh your risks and shoot your shots when you can. And I think there's just a really lovely amount of tension in this game in so many moments.
For those people who are afraid of that, I feel like there are plenty of games out there that are nice about it, right? This one's just a little less nice. So if that's not your thing, that's fine. But I would also say to those people, this is about how you utilize your resource, though, right? Like if you have enough either force or law, you can re-roll your dice as many times as you want to use that resource, right? So you can set yourself up for success. You also can flip over your poker card and you can add that to the number on the die. So based on that, you can also make sure that you can almost guarantee a victory if you want to spend the resources to do so.
For sure. And like at the end of the day, this is a Western themed game. Do you want it to be super friendly and la-di-da and get to do what you want and you don't no, you want to get in gunfights and you want to like call your opponents a dirty dog and tell them there's only room for one of us in this town. And like you want to have those feelings, right? When you're playing a Western themed game. The other thing we should mention is that it's asymmetrical. So there are like a whole bunch of
player powers,
player mats that come with player powers. So you do get to like have a little bit of variability in how you play the game and what you're good at in a game, right? Whether you're really good at dueling. I think there's one that's really good at dueling if you're the aggressor. There's another one that's really good at defending. There's one that's really good with resources and money. There's another one that's so the rancher is one that we should mention, and this gets maybe into a little bit of the nitpicks. The rancher we felt was overpowered. You could pay a single resource at the beginning of the round and get a third worker every single round. And like the minimum you could ever get with a worker is a resource. That's the minimum you can get with a worker. So there's zero reason not to do it every single round. And we found that the rancher won almost every single game, as long as the person was half proficient, right?
Right. So
we house ruled it and made it so you had to pay 2 resources of the same type at the beginning of each round if you wanted to use that third posse token. And we found that even in those games, the rancher did it almost every single round, but because of the cost, it did kind of even things out. But this
might be a side tangent, but side tangent on this, but I feel like here's something that I think most people need to know if they don't already. If you are playing a game and something in the game isn't working for you and your group for any reason whatsoever, I'm a big believer in house rules, right? Like if there's something you want to take out of the game or something you don't enjoy in a game, go ahead and shave off a little edge, take a little something out, right? So I love what you did with the Rancher. You made it just a little harder for it to execute its thing, and for you, that made the game more balanced and more fun to play. So I recommend to people, if you can figure that out, don't be ashamed. Go ahead and do it. We as game designers do our best to make the best possible game, and we play test the hell out of things. But that doesn't mean that there isn't some person out there in the world playing the game in a certain way that can break it, and we just hadn't found it yet. For most of us, we play test our game maybe 100, 150 times, right? Like really and truly pretty thoroughly testing it. But the day a game shows up into the market, it gets played 1,000 times. So we also look for that feedback once it's out in the market, out in the world, to figure out how to fix maybe version 2.0 or how to make the expansion to fix some of the little things that we didn't find the first time. So don't be afraid to make your adjustments. Don't think that the people who wrote the rule book are infallible.
For sure. Generally speaking, I will add a caveat to that. Play the game a lot before you...
Don't just make tweaks immediately. Yes, I agree.
That something needs to be tweaked because I'm not a fan of house ruling things. I do it very, very seldomly. This was an instance where I had played the game enough times to be like, man, Rancher wins like so much. And it just felt so overbearing that it was like, okay, we got to do something about this.
Okay.
But I will say that like I'm generally not a fan of house ruling. But if I've played a game enough times that it's like I get to a point where I know it so well that I feel comfortable doing it, then I'll do it. But generally speaking, I say this all the time, I sit down with, like, I have some friends that are just like willy-nilly with house rules. I'm looking at you, Steph, if you're listening. But yeah, Steph, one of my really good gaming buddies. She's awesome. I love playing games with her. But yeah, so often she's like, "Oh, let's just do this." And I'm like, whoa. We've played this game. We're in our first play of this game. We're not just going to house rule something. The designers put that rule in there for a reason. Maybe we don't understand it yet, but that rule's in there for a reason. But I agree with you, Andrew. If you've played the game enough and you feel like you have a really good understanding of it, and you've found something that you feel really isn't working for you or your group, by all means. I mean, the whole point of this hobby is just to have a good time, right? It's not about
exactly.
It's not about anything else, really. It's about getting together with friends and having a good time. So, yeah. Do you have any nitpicks or favorite things just to kind of cap this off here?
Yeah, I have both in the same thing, and that is the bullet dice. I adore the bullet dice, right? Like,
fun, yeah.
How cool is it that you can either spin them like a top or you can throw them, but you're throwing a bullet on the table and it rolls, and on the side it says what its value is. It's 1 through 6, right? But on the other side of that, the nitpick for me is that they're essentially white on gray. Why not have a black on a light color? Like, why not make it easier to read these dice? It doesn't make any sense to me. It is such a weird thing to, like, I guess on some level you wanted to set the die and look from afar. It looks like a full-on bullet. But then if you want that, why do you have the bottoms be red or yellow, right? Like, why is it got to have a fancy color or a color on it at all if you wanted to do that? Yeah. So I kind of feel like you should have gone one way or the other. Either make them readable and fun or make them realistic. And it kind of went in right between the two. So it's my favorite thing, and I don't like it.
Yeah, it's basically just like the numbers are ingrained or indented, and there's no change in color. So you really have to be a really well-lit room or be really close to the die to be able to see it. But yeah, it's a nitpick. I agree. Nothing that's going to like make or break the game for me, but a small annoyance for sure. But the bullet dice are so cool. Yeah, it's just a perfect little touch to a thematic game like this. Yeah, as far as nitpicks, it's just a weird game, I find, that is going to hit with some people and it's not going to hit with others.
Yeah.
But the big thing for me is that despite a few of its flaws, I think it outshines its flaws. with the tension that it builds and the really juicy decisions you have to make from round to round and how tight it feels. If those things sound interesting to you, then check it out. It's 100% worth it, especially the fact this is a tiny epic game. So it comes in a very small box. It's super easy to just throw in your bag, bring around. The table presence is great. So the amount of value that you get for a small box that'll cost you like 20, 25 US, you get so much value out of that box. And like, again, I bought that 10 years ago probably. Pretty soon after it came out. And the amount of times that I've played that game for the price, like the value is just insane. So highly recommend the game. I'm a big fan. A few minor nitpicks, and like, it's not for everybody. It's not a game that's going to hit for every single person, but if it's good, if it sounds like it's interesting for you, the tightness, the player interaction, and all that stuff, and the theme, I would highly recommend you check this game out. For me, it's like anytime somebody asks me about an underrated game or a game that doesn't get the accolades that it deserves, this is always the one I bring up.
I think that's a fair thing, because currently it's ranked 2,122. In strategy, it's 1,164. That sounds like something that's way out of people's range. It's a 6.6 current rating on Board Game Geek. I would say for me, it's a 7. I would say it's a little bit better than people say it is, but there's no way it should be in the below 2,000 ranking. It's a really good game.
Yeah, agreed. I have a little bit higher than that. I have it at an 8.5. There's probably an extra maybe 0.5 in there for like nostalgic reasons, or maybe nostalgia is not the right word, but it does hold a bit of a special place in my heart because it's one of the first ever hobby games that I purchased and learned. So maybe that's the reason that I really gave it I gave it a more of a chance, because I remember struggling to learn it. I was fairly newer in the hobby game, kind of in my hobby game life as well. So it wasn't as easy to like digest and learn these mechanisms the way that it would be now, for example. But so I played it a ton when I first got it, because it was one of my only like hobby games that I owned at the time. And I was excited about the theme and everything. And it hit with our group. Like, we played it a ton when I first got that game. So it has a little bit of a special place in my heart for kind of like opening me up to the greater hobby game. But realistically, it's probably an 8.5, a little extra boost for the emotional side of things for me personally.
Okay.
Cool. Let's move on to our feature movie of the episode. All right, so Django Unchained, released in 2012, directed by Quentin Tarantino, one of my favorite filmmakers. Stars Jamie Foxx, Christoph Waltz, Leo DiCaprio, Kerry Washington, Samuel L. Jackson, and a really great cameo from Don Johnson.
Great cast.
Amazing cast. It was nominated for Best Picture and Cinematography, and Quentin Tarantino won Original Screenplay as the writer for the movie. And Christoph Waltz won his second Oscar for Best Supporting Actor, both from Quentin Tarantino movies. So when
he just couldn't help himself.
Yeah. Nice. Christoph Waltz won back-to-back for really interesting roles, and we'll get into that in a few minutes. But the synopsis goes that Django Unchained follows Django, a former slave turned cowboy with a killer wardrobe, as he teams up with Dr. King Schultz, a German dentist turned bounty hunter who hates slavery and revels in the excessive ornamentation of the English language through linguistic acrobatics. They ride across the Old West collecting bodies and one-liners, all while plotting to rescue Django's wife from Calvin Candy, a plantation owner who's equal parts Southern charm and absolute monster. Along the way, there are bar fights, snow shootouts, exploding body parts, and Leonardo DiCaprio throwing a fit while bleeding real blood. It's a revenge flick, a buddy comedy, and a history class that got drunk and picked up a 6-shooter.
I like that finisher. Yeah, that's solid.
Yeah, so Django Unchained, I guess this was Quentin Tarantino's first Western, because he did follow that up immediately with The Hateful Eight.
So interesting bit of tidbit on that, since you mentioned that. The Hateful Eight was actually meant to be a sequel to Django Unchained, but once they started the process of refining it and stuff like that, realized it would be more interesting if it was a totally different character. But it was originally designed as a sequel.
So were there going to be reoccurring characters?
So Django, played by Jamie Foxx, was going to be Samuel L. Jackson's character in that film.
Okay. Yeah, I guess that makes sense. After the fact, he could have gone to the war and everything in the Civil War.
Yeah, so essentially, they decided, after doing some rewrites and stuff like that, they decided maybe it's better to be a standalone thing. But it was originally written as an intention to be Django 2.
Cool. Yeah, very, very. It would be a completely different movie, because I'm imagining Django being, although very bright and sharp, not that talkative, not that forward with his thoughts. He talks more with his actions and looks than he does with his mouth, where that's not necessarily the case with Samuel L. Jackson's character in The Hateful Eight. He's very much a chatty dude, and he uses deception and lies, and with the whole like Lincoln letter thing, and very different kind of character. So it would have been a different movie altogether, or a different feel anyways from that character.
Well, how it starts is not always how it finishes when Hollywood rewrites take place, right? And then recasting and stuff like that. So, yes, it turned into a different movie, but I think it's very interesting to know that was the starting point.
Yeah, that is cool. Okay, so before we get into more about this movie specifically, let's talk really quickly about Quentin Tarantino. What are your general thoughts? Like, are you a big QT guy like I am, or are you not?
I think he's a true auteur, and by that I realize, or what I meant by that is that I think he makes his movies. I think he doesn't worry about shifting or blending or anything like that. Like, he doesn't change his format or thought process. He adapts whatever he's making to his style of film, and I think he loves to touch upon classic cinema in his mind, and then he tends to ramp up whatever it is he's doing. He also writes a lot of his own stuff. And because he does that, he does a lot of homages to things he loves. But he doesn't do a lot of stuff where he's picking up somebody else's work and trying to make it what somebody else envisioned. I think if he does pick up a script he didn't write, he always does it with the intention to turn it into whatever his vision is going to be. So I think he's a true auteur, and I think he's one of the best in the world doing the thing that he does. But it's hard to rank him amongst other quality directors because he does his niche so thoroughly.
Yeah, definitely a unique, a very, very unique storyteller, and a very unique director, for sure. Very stylized. If Quentin Tarantino made a mystery movie, never told anybody, and released it, and I stumbled across it 5 minutes in, I'd be like, this is a Quentin Tarantino movie.
Yes,
you would just know right away.
Let's go ahead and go through his hallmarks. What are the things that he's known for, right?
Yeah, so he's known for, and he was probably one of the first, and he actually changed cinema a little bit with Reservoir Dogs and Pulp Fiction.
Yes,
they're like humanizing and making mundane criminals.
Yes.
Is kind of a major hallmark of his, where like people who are deplorable and who are doing awful things and who are the scum of society are sitting at a coffee shop talking about pop culture, talking about their movies, talking about tipping, talking about girls, talking about whatever. And we just like hang out and get to know criminals. And they're just like fun, interesting people. And you get a ton of that, or especially in his earlier movies, you get way more of it in like things like obviously Reservoir Dogs and Pulp Fiction are the two main ones that come to mind. So that's for me is one of his big and just like great dialogue. And obviously over the top violence is a big one.
Yes, that's definitely lots of blood, lots of gore, lots of what feels more gruesome. Not necessarily actual gruesome, right? Like the famous thing about everybody thinks they saw him cutting the ear off of Reservoir Dogs, but nobody actually saw it. The fact that you felt it, that you felt like you were there, is a really good hallmark of a Quentin Tarantino film.
Yeah, he pans away from the violence in that one, and to great effect. Another staple I'll say is like his incredible choice of music in his movies.
Yes.
I think The Hateful Eight was the first time he ever actually had score written for his movies.
Yeah.
Prior to that, it was always just him choosing music that already existed.
And he also did things that were kind of comedically chosen in the music, right? So like things that were offbeat or didn't even feel like it belonged in the space, he was big on doing. And the first time he did use a score, Enrico Morricone actually won the Oscar for the score that he made for that, because Quentin said, you know what, I'm going to take a back seat on this. I'm going to let the man do what he does to shine. And I think that was kind of good for both sides, right? That was cool.
Yeah, absolutely. And the score for Hateful Eight is incredible. It's so good.
Yeah.
So, but like you think about some of the music that he's chosen, and like Pulp Fiction is littered with it, and probably the most iconic of his music choices is Stuck in the Middle with You, and the Joker in Reservoir Dogs. So there's like, and like Death Proof is maybe my least favorite of his movies.
Fair.
It's actually. Yeah, it's. I mean, and it's still probably a 7.5 for me, out of 10. I still like it a lot, but it's maybe my least favorite. But there's so many great needle drops in that movie.
Yeah.
I mean, one of the main characters is a DJ, so they're constantly talking about music, and they literally go to the jukebox and put on music, and that movie especially, I love to turn up loud and just like soak in the music. It's a really, really special one for that specific thing. I'm trying to think what else might be his staples. I think the big things are just the violence that we talked about, his incredible ear for music. The guy's known for being an incredible, I don't know if this is the right terminology, but like his casting.
Oh God. Yeah.
As a caster,
he's either super well connected or he just picks out roles for specific people, and those people want to play his roles, right? Like, I think there's got to be that two-sided street. I think it's not a matter of he hires people and they just do what he wants. I think people want to be in a Quentin Tarantino film.
Oh yeah, especially at this point, like, you know, even just after Pulp Fiction, actors saw what he did with Samuel L. Jackson and John Travolta. Samuel L. Jackson, that was his big moment of like coming into the limelight. He had worked prior to that, but he was never huge. He wasn't Samuel L. Jackson. He was just like some other black dude, you know, that was obviously a great actor, but he hadn't had his moment yet in the spotlight. And Pulp Fiction kind of vaulted him into stardom, and Pulp Fiction was also a renaissance for John Travolta, who had kind of fallen off out of the limelight, and after kind of a really hot start to his career, but he had disappeared a little bit. And especially after that casting and what he did for those two guys in terms of like catapulting them to you know the next level of Hollywood stardom. I'm sure every actor was lining up, and if you get a call from Quentin Tarantino, you're probably not saying no. And the list goes on, right? Like Christoph Waltz, who was he before Inglourious Bastards?
Yeah.
Right. I think he did some stage acting, and he did a bunch of stuff overseas, but he was not an A-list Hollywood actor the way that he was in that moment after those two movies. So,
and that all changed in a heartbeat. Right now, he's a major player
for sure. Yeah. Cool. So let's get into Django. What are your general thoughts? I mean, I guess plot wise, maybe we can very quickly talk about it. But Django is a slave in the very first scene of the movie. Christoph Waltz's character kind of purchases him, and then offers, because he has information that he needs. So he says, "Help me out with this one thing, and then I'll give you your freedom." And then over the course of them working together on that deal, Waltz finds out that Django has a wife who's currently owned by Leo DiCaprio's character, Calvin Candy, who's this, I guess, Francophile plantation owner. The worst
loves
kind.
Sweets. He's a Candyland guy. Yeah,
that's right. Yeah, and so basically, Christoph Waltz agrees to go and try to save his wife. So they go on this mission. They go to Candyland. I mean, there's a bunch of other stuff that happens, obviously, over the course of their adventure. But this is the broad strokes. They go to this Candyland and meet up with Leo DiCaprio. They put together this big ruse, this big plan to pretend to buy a mandingo, which is these slave fighters, like these gladiator-esque brutal fighters. They basically put together this masquerade that they're there to buy, but really all they're there to do is to buy Broomhilda, who's Django's wife. And then Candy finds out through Samuel L. Jackson's character. He figures it out, and then there's obviously a big shootout, and then ultimately Django and his wife do get away after some incredibly graphic and over-the-top violence, as we always expect from a Quentin Tarantino movie.
Spoiler alert.
Yeah, I mean, what is it?
2012, yeah.
13 years old now. So if we're spoiling Django for you right now, I'd be very surprised. But so that's the general broad strokes of the plot. What are your general thoughts on this movie?
So I think that the quality is ingrained in this production all the way through, right? Like, the acting is crazy good. And I would say that Leonardo DiCaprio might be one of the best roles in this, and he takes over the screen when he does it. And he is blood-curdling evil. But evil in this way that is just so generically basic, right? He is
almost.
He is nonchalantly evil. That's what it is, and that's actually what makes it so special, right? Yeah. So much so that he's doing a scene and he's doing a little thing and he slams his fist down and he slams it on top of a glass that breaks, cuts him open, and he does the rest of the scene anyway. He was so in the moment, so fully engaged, and he was so repulsed by his character that at some point he's like, I don't know if I can even do this anymore. And Samuel Jackson had to take him aside and say, listen, this is a Wednesday for us. Like, we got to just do this. This is just what it is, right? Just play the character and don't softball it. You got to really own it fully for this film to work. Because if he doesn't have those sharp edges, if he doesn't have that truly despicable aspect of things, then the movie does fizzle. It falls apart. So I'd say he is actually the linchpin that this movie is. Now, Jamie Foxx is the main character, and he's really good at it. And the same thing with Christoph Waltz. I would say that on some level, Christoph Waltz might actually be the main character in this film, which is why it's weird that he won the Oscar for supporting role when really he's on film more often than anybody else.
Definitely has more lines than anybody else.
Yes, and obviously, he's the more loquacious of the characters, and he uses the language spectacularly. I realize he's saying, all these different things, and that's part of the fun is the cartoony aspect of his character. It's also the thing that kind of disarms the other people, is that he's just talking and talking, so he can't really be that big a threat. And there's a lot of really fun things in this film. So I think this film is definitely worth watching. I think it's quality all the way through. I think it's definitely very interesting. It's gruesome and it's hard to watch. But I imagine that if you went back in time to this time period, that would also be a difficult thing to live through. So on that level, it's kind of trying to be a reflection of the time. But I feel like I'm going to go on a rant here and just keep talking. But at the same time, I feel like there's no shortage to quality in all aspects on this. So congratulations on making a great film overall. Do I have things that I don't like? Yes. I think it went a little too far with some of the gruesomeness and some of the blood and guts. And when you're doing, I think it was like 197 squibs, that tells me everything I need to know about how much blood. I mean, at one point, the white walls were painted red. And I'm sure that was done on purpose, but that's kind of both a good thought and a little annoying, if that makes sense, right? At some point, it's like the bullets in the Matrix. None of them are hitting, so what's the point, right? Like when all you're doing is firing off and exploding dead bodies going everywhere, like it loses some of the actual presence of the moment. It loses some of the actual gravitas, right? Like it goes away.
It takes you out of it a little bit, for sure.
Yeah.
I agree. If I have one nitpick in general for all of Quentin Tarantino's movies is that it's like sometimes he goes just a touch too far with the violence.
Yeah.
And I don't mind that level of violence. What I mind is
the impact,
how realistic it feels.
Or how important is it to the story?
Yeah, and in an otherwise grounded movie, fairly grounded. I mean, obviously it's still fairly high stylized and stuff, but it just feels like this is another level of like that style, and I just feel like he just can't help himself. Right? He can't help himself, but just like go that extra little, like it goes to 11.
Yeah.
So, you know, and he does it in most of his movies. Like my favorite of his is Inglourious Bastards.
Sure.
And that movie really only has 2 moments of that. One is when we're doing the Hugo Stiglitz, like flashback scenes of all the Nazis that he's killed. And like, it's played for laughs in that one, and it's a flashback. So you get away with it because a flashback is ultimately a memory, right?
Yeah.
And it can be more stylized and more weird because it's just like a thing that happened in the past, and it's like being told as a story of one of the characters as opposed to a thing that you're seeing on screen that's currently happening. So you get away with that one a little bit. But there's a scene where he sticks his whole arm inside a guy's mouth. And that's how he kills the guy. And there's like stuff like that where I'm like, okay. And then the moment where they kill Hitler and basically they machine gun Hitler in the face, and his face just becomes complete rubbery mush. And you see it for a split second. It's not long, but a split second you see that, and it's like, that takes me out of it a little bit because it didn't look that realistic. And in this movie, there's an entire scene of nothing but that. Like there's a shootout with, like you said, almost 200 squibs. And not only is some of the like violence and body horror that happens because of the bullets that I don't fully love, that rubs me a little bit the wrong way, not a lot.
And you're a horror guy, so you actually like that stuff.
Well, yeah, but this isn't a horror movie.
Right.
So if this was a horror movie, I'd be like, yeah, I'd probably be cheering, right? But it's not. So
it's misplaced,
It just feels misplaced, and it feels like he just goes just one notch too far with some of it. And honestly, more than anything, the biggest thing that bothers me with that scene is that it just doesn't feel realistic. He's hiding behind this like wicker cabinet, and the bullets are not hitting him because this wicker cabinet is protecting him. There's a guy laying on the floor that gets shot over and over and over and over again accidentally. Which is like sort of funny, but at the same time, I'm like, is that even really realistic? Like, why are they shooting at the floor? The guy's laying on the floor. Like, shouldn't they be shooting a little higher? So, anyways, those are just a few of the minor nitpicks that I have with Quentin Tarantino in general.
Right.
But I think that the movie and all of his movies really just like build up a what's the word I'm looking for? It just like has it built up enough goodwill with me because I'm having such a great time with the performances and the direction and the acting and the cinematography. I'm having such a great time with everything else that when I walk out of the theater, I'm not left thinking about the few minor nitpicks that I had.
Sure,
about everything else that I absolutely loved. And this movie is no exception. You mentioned Leo. I think this is one of his best performances.
Yeah. And one of the few ever evil performances, right? Like, he's not the kind of guy who takes on evil roles, and he was willing to do this because it's Quentin Tarantino and because he said this was a compelling story to tell.
This is his first role with Tarantino, right?
I believe so. I have to look back and be sure, but I think so, yeah.
Yeah, Hollywood was after this, obviously. This was Hollywood's his latest movie.
Yeah.
But I don't think he worked with Leo before that.
I don't think so.
Yeah, so it's interesting that he's like, I'll go work with you and I'll be this evil character, and you don't really see that from Leo usually. You're right. I hadn't thought about that, but yeah, he nails this role, and he is like deliciously evil, like in the best way. I'm honestly maybe one of the all-time great villains that don't get, like, when so many times you see like these lists, right? Who are your favorite villains? And you see like Heath Ledger's Joker, and you see Darth Vader, and you see Hannibal Lecter, and there's lots of great villains. I feel like this one belongs in that category.
Well, I will disagree slightly. In fact, the fact that he did such a good job that he's repulsive, right? Like, I think you're not a favorite villain if you're actually repulsive. I think the reason people like Darth Vader is because he's cool in his evil, right? Like, and if people like the Joker, it's because he's fun in his evil. I think it's those kind of playful or interesting or compelling or even things that you can identify with. I don't think anybody's looking at the rotted teeth in the face of Leonardo DiCaprio and being like, that's me. That's me. I can see myself in that, right? Like, or at least you hope people don't see themselves in that, and
maybe
therefore
he falls more in the hateful villains, right? Like the
Cersei
Lannisters,
and the despicable,
the Joffrey Lannisters, and like that type
the
of
Cruella de Vil's. Yeah.
But so I mean, regardless of what category you want to put him, I think his performance and the level of evil that he hits, and exceptional. Exactly. That whole speech that he does with the skull that leads to him smashing the table and cutting his hand, and that whole monologue is incredible. Speaking of monologues, we mentioned Christoph Waltz. I just want to mention again, amazing performance. I love the way that guy talks and looks and acts. And, we're talking about all-time great villains, and we didn't mention his role in Inglourious Bastards.
Yeah.
Which his character name escapes me, but that performance is like one of my if I had to name top 10 all-time performances, he's probably in there in that role.
Hans Landa, that's his name.
Yes, Hans Landa. Yeah. Love that. There's so many great lines. That's a bingo. Always think of that line specifically. But man, he's fun in that movie. And you're right. Like, you talk about evil villains. That is a likable, fun, evil villain, even though he has moments of absolutely terrifying performance. Right, like. Especially that first scene, the opening scene of Inglourious Bastards is maybe the best opening scene of all time.
I would actually say it's a top 4 10-minute segment, right? Like, if you were to take 10 minutes out of any movie of all time, I think it's top 5. Yeah. And I think that first scene could be its own movie. It could literally be its own movie. All the tension, all the dialogue, all the performance, it's all there in the shortest possible. And I will go back and watch that first 10, 15 minutes and not watch the rest of the film and be satisfied.
Oh, yeah. It's so great. That alone could have won him the Oscar, and may have.
think
but
it
yeah,
did.
he goes like there's just like this emotional roller coaster because he goes from you just see his entrance as this Gestapo officer, this like obviously evil, he's a Nazi, like right, just the imagery of him, you're like immediate revulsion. And then he starts to talk, and you're like, oh, this is like he's friendly, he's charming, he's nice, he's like drinking the milk, and he's putting on this big performance, and you can't help but just be charmed by him. And
but you're still feeling the tension underlying it. You know that it's not for pleasantry. You know he's got an ulterior motive, and you can feel it.
Yeah. So I mean, we're talking about Django here, not
Inglorious.
But I just thought I'd mention it because it's really cool that a guy like that can go from being a Nazi, right, a fascist Nazi murderer, to literally the complete opposite. Somebody who is, comes from the same place, is a German, a German American, I guess, in Django. And has like speaks in the same way, and obviously is the same actor, so he looks very similar. But he hates slavery, and he's obviously somebody who's likes to share the wealth and make sure that things are fair, and he just like literally the opposite side of the coin of a Nazi. And wins the Oscar for both.
Yeah.
So
true.
I just like want to shout out Christoph Waltz because like just with those two performances alone, he is like one of my favorite actors. And I've seen him in a few other things, but like just those two alone, love the guy and love those performances. Not sure there's much else to go over. I will, like, if we're going to go into nitpicks, we already talked about the overtop violence, the fact that took me out a little bit. I didn't care for I didn't care for the last like 10 minutes of that movie. 10 minutes, whatever it was.
It was unnecessary, right?
Yeah. It just felt like it could have ended with that shootout in one way, shape, or form for him to like get out of there. And everything that happened after he was captured, where he went back and killed everybody, that could have just happened all in the same scene as the shootout.
Agreed.
We could have gotten rid of 10 minutes of the movie and Quentin Tarantino's awful Australian accent.
It was pretty awful, but I will give it this: the catharsis of him shooting the dynamite in his hand and fully exploding.
You're right. I forgot about that.
After that, it's because of that bad acting. It's because of that bad accent that I look forward to that explosion. It's like you're making me suffer through this, so therefore it's the redemption arc of making me go through that garbage, and that's what you get for that. So there you go.
Yeah, fair enough. And I'm praising this scene, but I love the look on the slaves' faces.
Yeah.
And there's a little bit of this throughout, but this is really the exclamation point. But every time somebody sees a N-word on a horse, which they keep saying over and over, or a slave on a horse, however you want to say it, the looks on all the people's faces of like, what is going on here is
right.
Just
the world's
delicious.
Upside down. Yeah.
And then again, the exclamation point of that is that the slaves that are in that cage at the end of that movie, they see him like outsmart the white guys and shoot them and dupe them. He promises them money. He promises them this and that. And the second he gets a gun, it's like bang, bang, bang. They're all dead.
Yep.
And the looks on the faces of those dudes in the cage is just like delicious. So I guess there's some redeeming moments in the last few minutes, but I just felt like it didn't necessarily belong there.
I also will say one other thing, and that is the thing I noticed on this last viewing, right before we recorded this. I went back and watched it again. And I never connected until now the fact that Dr. Schultz is a dentist, right? Who goes and takes out the cavities of humanity, including specifically going to Candyland and killing the biggest cavity itself of a man who's so rotting from the inside that all you can see is his teeth, which represents the corrupt soul that he has. I thought that was actually deliciously beautiful, and I didn't remember catching that the first couple times I saw it.
Yeah, I'm not sure I fully clocked all of that. I mean, I noticed the teeth, and I obviously noticed the fact that he's a dentist, and obviously the dude calls his name is Candy, and it's Candyland and all that stuff. But I never really fully connected those dots. So yeah, that's pretty cool. It's a nice little like undertone touch. I guess it's fairly obvious if you think about it, but it's.
But
not,
I think one of the
they don't
great
hit
things
you over the head with it, I guess is what I'm getting to.
One of the great things in cinema for me is if I watch a film over and over, do I get more out of it the next time I watch it? Do I notice subtleties? Do I catch little things? Right? Like that's for me the fun in a rewatch. Otherwise, I go watch a film and I don't ever watch it again. And if I feel like I got everything the first time, why would I watch it again unless I had an amazing time? Yeah. But if there's things I didn't catch, things I didn't quite understand, sometimes watching it a second time can make that movie a new experience. And that is, I think, what great cinema is all about.
Yeah, and now that you're on this topic and you mentioned that, is there a more rewatchable director than Quentin Tarantino?
Wow, that's put me on the spot. I can think of tons and tons of directors that I would watch over and over and over and over again.
Sure, but he's up there. In my opinion, his stuff is so rewatchable for some reason. Yeah, I don't know if it's the dialogue or if it's the set. And probably it's the dialogue and the characters. That's got to be it.
Sure. Yeah,
in my opinion, but yeah, I
without sitting down to hash it out, I'd have to agree.
Yeah. Cool. Yeah, I'm a big fan of this movie. Let's get to our ratings and wrap this up. Yeah, this was a lot of fun. I'm a big fan of this movie. I'm a big fan of Quentin Tarantino. I'm like in the bag for this guy. You heard me talk a little bit about Mike Flanagan on the last episode. I'm in the bag for that guy too. There's certain guys, certain guys and girls and directors and auteurs and artists in general that you're just in the bag for, and you just like eat up their style. And Quentin Tarantino is that for me. I just love the dialogue and the juicy characters. If there's one thing, we talked about the staples of Quentin Tarantino. If there's one thing, it's the juicy characters and the juicy dialogue that comes with that. And for me, like Calvin Candy, Leonardo DiCaprio's character, and King Schultz, Christoph Waltz's character, are the two that stand out for me as being like just so juicy, and I could listen to those two talk, and their big kind of moment at the end where they're back and forth and everything that happens in that library when he's insisting that he shakes his hand. And you said this exact line at the onset of the episode, like I just couldn't help myself.
Right.
You talk about juicy dialogue and juice, like there's nothing more juicy than that scene between those two guys. So I have this as a 4.5. It's not perfect, but it's pretty close. I'm a huge fan of this movie. As I said, I'm in the bag for Quentin Tarantino, and all of the stuff that I come to expect from a Tarantino movie is here, and I just have so much fun with it.
For me and my rating, I'm going to give it a 4. I'm a little less. I feel like this film is for a specific subset of the population, right? It's for people who really love either Westerns or really love Quentin Tarantino. But if you don't like those two things, you are going to hate this film. And so for me, I do like those things. And so I do like this movie, but I have to ding it a little bit because this movie is so hyper focused on a specific subset of the population.
Yeah, fair enough. Cool. So yeah, that was a lot of fun. Thanks for doing that. And again, officially welcome to the Dice Camera Action team. I'm
Thank
really
you very
excited
much.
that you decided to join us. It's going to be a fun adventure. So if you're enjoying this podcast, take a few minutes to rate, review, subscribe on whatever platform you're listening on. You can follow us on Instagram at Dice Camera Action Pod. And if you have any feedback, comments, or would like to suggest a movie game pairing for future episodes, email us at dicecameraactionpod@gmail.com. We'll catch you later. Thanks, Andrew.
Hey, Matt Cousineau, before you go, will you tell Miss Laura goodbye?
I will.